Here are our solutions to homework set number 8 for ECE 376 Embedded Systems. This homework set looks at A to D converters and student t-test. Now the first problem is to find out how long it takes to do an A to D conversion. One way to do that is take a program, and kind of what I would do is start with something that works, something that reads the analog input. For example, if you go to Bison Academy, I can scroll down, find a program that uses the LCD, like LCD demo. Okay, let's try that again. Let's go to Bison Academy, find a routine that reads the analog input and displays it. So what I'll do to test how long it takes the A to D converter to work, I'll go to Bison Academy, find a program that uses the analog input and the LCD display, like ohmmeter. That should work. Copy, go into MPLab. Okay, where's MPLab? Take the program that I'm compiling, blow it out. That's now the ohmmeter code. Build it, project, build. Make sure it works. I will download that code. So hit reset, download the code. And this is the ohmmeter code. What I'm looking for is something that reads the analog input. And as I turn the potentiometer, you can see the voltage changes, the color, the brightness of RA1, RA0 changes, and the numbers change. So that's the base code for ohmmeter. Okay, so I now have something that works. It reads the voltage. Now let's strip it out. Like, one thing I can do is modify this code. What I'm actually going to do is write a little test routine. I'm just going to read the analog input and then toggle. A pin I'm not using, like RC0, port C, increment port C, blow out everything else. So that's all my code does. Just read the analog input and toggles port C. This routine supersedes this one. I could do this to make it more clear. This routine is not executed. The top one is. Compile, download, reset, program. And now what you'll see is port C is counting really, really fast. I've got a speaker connected to port C through an H-bridge. So what you see is port C is counting really, really fast. Connected to a square or speaker. And I put a square wave. Each pin is divided by 2, so this is the frequency that I want, that one. That's too high frequency for my piano tuner app. Using piano tuner, I can measure the frequency out of range. Okay, so there I can measure the frequency. From that, I can calculate how long it takes to execute. So it was 480 Hertz. I had to measure down here on port C pin 5. That's divided by 32 in frequency. Each pin is divided by 2. So pin 0, what I really care about, that's apparently 15,000 Hertz. The number of clocks for A to D conversion then is 10 million divided by 2 times Hertz, 325 clocks. So it takes about 325 clocks to do a conversion, or about 32 microseconds. Problem number 2 is with the analog input. I could build a voltmeter, ohmmeter, or a temperature sensor. So this one you don't program, you just do calculations. If I have the analog input reading right here, the analog input, it reads 0 volts to 5 volts. 0 volts reads as 0, 5 volts reads as 1023. So if I know the voltage, I know the A to D reading. Going backwards, if I know the A to D reading, I know the voltage. It's this percentage at full scale. It's 3.97 volts. I can measure resistance. If I have a voltage divider and I measure this is 3.9736 volts, I can calculate RT. From voltage division, given RT, here's the voltage. Solving backwards, given the voltage, here's the resistance. That's apparently 3871 ohms. If I have a thermistor, if I know temperature, I know resistance. If I know resistance, I know temperature. So solving backwards, 3871 ohms corresponds to 10.7 degrees Celsius. So just by reading the analog input, I can tell you voltage, resistance, temperature, a lot of things. Problem, okay, that's the analog input. The next set of problems are t-tests. T-test is probably the most common test you're ever going to use. This is trying to come up with a reflex game. So to do that, I take the old program and replace it with the new one. This took a little bit of time to debug, but once you get it, here's my reflex game. Compile, project build, download. Here's my flash tool, program. That's all you need to do to download a new program. I'm now measuring my reflex time. So kind of the way this works is I press RB0 to start the game. It then generates a random time between 3 and 7 seconds. Then port A turns on. When port A turns on, I'll press RB0. That's my reflex time. So let's try that again. I'm starting the program. Here's my 3 to 7 second wait. Then the lights on port A turn on. When they do, I hit the button. So there I hit the button 4.3 seconds later. Trying that one more time. Let's do something where I know what the answer is, like 5 seconds. Light came on. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's actually 5.7 seconds. Okay, now let's do it as fast as I can. As soon as light comes on, I'll push the button. That was 0.198 seconds. Try it again. 0.291 seconds. Try it again. 0.216 seconds. Okay, so the first part is come up with that code. Here's the flow chart. I start, wait, turn off the lights, wait for RB1. When I push it, wait 3 to 7 seconds, turn the light on, wait till I hit the button. When I do, measure the time difference, display the time, and repeat. The way the code works, overhead, overhead. So here's the code. This is the main loop. I'm going to turn off the lights, wait till I hit a button. Once I hit the button, I'll turn on RE0. That just tells me that it's in the wait routine. Calculate a random number. Keep counting until I release the button. When I release, I get a random number, 0 to 4,000. Add 3,000 to that. That's my 3 to 7 second wait. Once the wait time is over, turn on the lights on port A, clear time. I then wait till I hit the button. I loop every millisecond and count. Keep counting until I hit the button. As soon as I hit the button, milliseconds is how long it took. So here's kind of how that looks again. I press, release the button. That generates a random number between 3 and 7 seconds. The lights then turn on. I then hit the button. The time delay between when the light turned on and hit the button, that's my wait time, or reflex time. So that's the code. When I compile it, that's how big the code is. Next one is do some statistics. Collect some data. So I measured my reflex time 6 times. Here's what I got. Take that data. It has a mean, standard deviation. If I plot it, this is what my reflex time looks like. It's a bell-shaped curve. The mean is 174 milliseconds. The standard deviation is 12 milliseconds. I can now start doing some analysis. take the data, I'll collect some data, find the mean standard deviation, I can start doing some t-tests. So I want to know, given that data, what's the 90% confidence interval, what's the probability, my reaction time, what's the 90% confidence interval for my average reaction time? Hard to get out. Okay, so the first one, I've got my data, it's got a mean standard deviation. If you go to StatTrak, I've got a t-distribution. This is the t-score for 5% tails with sample size of 5. If I go left and right by 2.13 standard deviations, that gives me the 90% confidence interval. So anytime I run this experiment, I expect my reflex time to be between 163 and 266. So let's try it. Hit the button, wait for the lights to come on. When they do, okay, that was not a very good one. Another not so good one. Okay, so apparently I am kind of distracted. Normally when I was focusing, that's what it would be. A second question is, I do have an average reaction time. What is that number? Well, I don't know what that number is, but I can estimate it from the data. The more data I have, the more accurately I know that number. When you're talking about populations like this, like what is the average reaction time, the sample size matters. So the variance drops by the sample size, the standard deviation drops by the square root of the sample size. So going left and right by the new standard deviation, scaled by the square root of the sample size, I get numbers between 192 and 238. That says I don't know what my average reaction time is, but I'm 90% certain it's in the range of 192 to 238. That's a one-sided t-test. Two-sided t-test. To do that, I need a second set of data. So what I'm going to do is, instead of using light, I'll use sound. I'm going to toggle the light and take it to a speaker. So here I just connected it to a speaker down there. When the sound comes on, I hit the button. So that's 1.58 seconds later. Let's try that again. One, two, three. About 3 seconds later. Looks good. Now let's go as fast as I can. 0.2 seconds. Try again. 0.138 seconds. So that's another way to run the experiment with sound rather than light. When I did that, I ran the experiment 5 times. Here's what I got. The data's got a mean, standard deviation. Here's what the data looks like. So this is sound. This is light. Once I have those two data sets, I can start answering questions. What's the probability that in any given trial, I will respond to sound faster than light? Well, that is a t-test. To do that, the trick is create a new population W. That's the difference in the two. The reason to do that is because the t-test really only works for one population, so I can turn two populations into one by taking the difference. When I do that, the mean of W is just the difference in the means. The variance of W is the sum of the means. The variances add rather than subtract, because what's happening is they could get a low A, large B, gives you a big spread. So the variance actually goes up. Take the square root to get the standard deviation. So this is A minus B. The mean is 82. The standard deviation is 24. The number 0 is what I care about. At 0 to the right is A is greater than B. To the left, A is less than B. To find out what this area is, that's a t-test. How far is 0 from the mean in terms of standard deviations? It's 3.41 standard deviations away. From StatTrak, I can find the area of the tail. Area of the tail is 1.3% chance. So 1.3% chance I am faster with light than sound. Not likely, but it could be. 90% chance I respond to sound faster than light. The reason it's not 100 is I don't have infinite data. It's possible that light actually has a lower mean than sound. Just I happen to get unlucky. I got a whole bunch of high readings over here, a bunch of low readings over there. So it's possible that light actually is faster than sound. Not likely, but possible. That's what the t-test tells you. It is a 1.3% chance that light's quicker than sound. Second problem is population question. I do have an average reaction time for sound. I do have an average reaction time for light. What's the probability that that average time is faster for light than sound? This is a population question. When you talk about populations, the variance drops by the sample size. So find the mean, find the variance, take the square root, there's the standard deviation. So this is the population's mean. Average is 82. The standard deviation is 10. I'm looking for the number 0. How far is 0 from the mean in terms of standard deviations? That's the t-score, 7.6. To convert that to a probability, I've got sample size of 5 for both populations. Both populations have 4 degrees of freedom. The difference has roughly 4 degrees of freedom. There's my t-score. There's the probability. So there is a chance that I respond to light faster than sound based upon this data. It's really unlikely though. I'm 99.93% certain that I respond faster to sound than light. That's the t-test. Probably the most common test you're ever going to use. But given data, that's kind of how you analyze it. With a t-test, I can analyze one population. I can analyze 2 populations by doing this trick, take the difference in them. If I have 3 populations, I need a different test. And that is homework set number 8 for ECE 376 Embedded Systems.